love really is all. And if we can find love in all its different manifestations, we can progress from what some people might call profane love or human love. To me, it's not profane at all. All love is divine. You can proceed all the way to divine love. In fact, you can have divine love or parts of it at each and every stage until you reach the final stage. So this is probably a good place also to explain a bit about Sufism. Sufism is the esoteric branch of Islam. And every religion that I am familiar with actually has both an exoteric part and an esoteric part. In Sufism, the exoteric part is called zahir, which is an Arabic word for that which is manifest. And the word for esoteric is batin, which means that which is hidden, but hidden in you actually, in your heart. It's hidden. So you don't have to go search everywhere else for the divine. Divine is in you already. It's just for you to discover who you really are. That's what it boils down to. We are not what we think we are. We are not what people tell that we are. We are not our professions. We are not our small selves. We are actually much bigger than what other people tell us or what we ourselves might think mistakenly what we are. Okay, so in Sufism, or tasawwuf is the Arabic word, that's the word for Sufism, there are two important concepts. One is called hal, which is the state that you are in. And sometimes you may be in a very ecstatic state, which is what, it's a wonderful state, but you have to be careful because ecstasy basically means being out of yourself, if you go back to the Greek roots of ecstasy. So when you're out of yourself, you have to be careful. And that's why you need a teacher who can guide you. So that's hal, state. On the other side, you have really this progression, the stages of this pilgrimage through life. And those are called maqam or muqam, which are stations. That way you can translate them. So we go through all these stations in life. And the idea of Sufism is that once you reach one stage, the task of the teacher is to take you to the next stage or help you go to the next stage on your own. You have to do the work yourself. The teacher is just there to guide you and to make sure that you don't go crazy in the process, which can happen. So I wouldn't advise people to try it on their own. But to find the right teacher also is very difficult because there are lots of fakes, especially here in the West. I have always wondered why all these yogis and people who claim to be Sufis have to come to Europe and America to enlighten people. Why don't they first enlighten people just around them? Of course, there are genuine teachers too, so this doesn't apply to everyone. Okay, one final word about Tantric Buddhism. The deep concept in Buddhism really is this shunyata, which has been translated as emptiness, but that is misleading because emptiness is also fullness. You are empty of many things, you're empty of garbage, let's say, but you are full of what is genuine reality. So according to Buddhism, Buddha was a great radical thinker and preacher. First of all, he said that there is nothing called soul or self. This is the doctrine of anatta. Then he said that basically we have the kind of desires that multiply, and you cannot be fulfilled because you can never fulfill all those desires. And people misinterpret this, I think, as saying that you should get rid of all desires. Then you should get rid of the desire to have the divine too. And maybe you should. But I think a better interpretation is that you pursue your desires in moderation and learn to distinguish between those desires which are harmful for others as well as for yourself, and those desires which will help you find yourself in others and understand the deeper reality. In all these traditions, music happens to be very important, and for reasons that you probably already understand, because most people in this room are musicians. But poetry is also important, and maybe what I've said, and I will begin with a folk song, But as an introduction, I want to read something from probably the most famous book by the Lebanese poet, Christian poet, Khalil Gibran, called The Prophet. And he has a wonderful section in this book called Love. So the Prophet is about to leave, and you know the story. So different people are asking the Prophet about different things. And there is this woman who may be a prostitute, we are not told clearly. But you know, Jesus had Mary Magdalene, maybe that association is there. So her name is Al-Mitra. Then said Al-Mitra, "Speak to us of love." And he raised his head and looked upon the people, and there fell a stillness upon them. And with a great voice he said, "When love beckons to you, follow him. Though his ways are hard and steep, and when his wings enfold you, yield to him. Though the sword hidden among his pinions may wound you, and when he speaks to you, believe in him. Though his voice may shatter your dreams, as the north wind lays waste the garden. For even as love crowns you, so shall he crucify you. Even as he is for your growth, so is he for your pruning. Even as he ascends to your height and caresses your tenderest branches that quiver in the sun, so shall he descend to your roots and shake them in their clinging to the earth. Like sheaves of corn, he gathers you unto himself. He threshes you to make you naked. He sifts you to free you from your husks. He grinds you to whiteness. He kneads you until you are pliant. And then he assigns you to his sacred fire, that you may become the sacred bread for God's sacred feast. All these things shall love do unto you, that you may know the secrets of your heart, and in that knowledge become a fragment of life's heart. But if in your fear you should seek only love's peace and love's pleasure, then it is better for you that you cover your nakedness and pass out of love's threshing floor into the seasonless world, where you shall laugh, but not all of your laughter, and weep, but not all of your tears. Love gives not but itself, and takes not but from itself. Love possesses not, nor would it be possessed. For love is sufficient unto love. When you love, you should not say, God is in my heart, but rather, I am in the heart of God. And think not, you can direct the course of love. For love, if it finds you worthy, directs your course. Love has no desire but to fulfill itself. But if you love and must needs have desires, let these be your desires. To melt and be like a running brook that sings its melody to the night. To know the pain of too much tenderness. To be wounded by your own understanding of love. And to bleed willingly and joyfully. To wake at dawn with a winged heart and give thanks for another day of loving. To rest at the noon hour and meditate love's ecstasy. To return home at eventide with gratitude. And then to sleep with a prayer for the beloved in your heart and a song of praise upon your lips. So we could end just here probably, but there are songs to sing, and I guess to discover love through songs. So that's what we'll focus on. And in every musical tradition that I'm familiar with, and that you're familiar with probably, there are basically many different varieties, many different genres, right? And I will claim that all higher forms of music that we call higher, I don't really make that distinction myself, really emerge from the people, from the folks, if you want to use the German root. So all music is folk music to me. And I think it's proper for us to start with folk music. Now in India, North India, but it's true in South India too, I think. In Bengali we say Kanu bine git nei, which means that you cannot really sing without mentioning Lord Krishna. All the songs actually come from Lord Krishna and go back to Lord Krishna. And Krishna is the dark god, which actually sociologically and historically I want to mention here, because many spiritual people seem to just walk away from the reality in front of them. In India, there are people who are darker and people who are not so dark, and people who are actually almost like Europeans. It speaks to the fact that India has been invaded by many different kinds of people, and they have displaced the local people. Part of India, South India, for example, was with Africa at one time, and people there, the indigenous people there are much darker, but so are the indigenous people in the north. And now we have a common name for them called Dalit, the oppressed, the repressed. And they are rising up now, which is a wonderful thing. And you'll hear actually a Dalit sing a very meaningful folk song by a fakir, a mendicant dervish, a spiritual person named Kabir, who lived a few centuries ago. Krishna, the dark god, Kali, the dark goddess, and there are a few others, they really represent, in a sense, the remnants of the kinds of spirituality that existed before these invasions took place in India. And to me, for that reason, they are very important. Shiva is another god. If you look at Shiva, how can he be a god? He's a dissipated kind of person who hangs around, smokes dope, and he has all these chelas, the disciples, who are no better than he seemingly. And at the same time, he is the god of creation and destruction. He is the god of dance for us. He is Nataraja, which is the king of not just dance. It also has every art in it. So he is the king. And he's not really masculine, nor is he feminine. He is both. So this is wonderful. But we'll start with Lord Krishna. And there is this famous story of Radha and Krishna. Radha actually is a very daring woman. She is already married, and she is deeply in love with Krishna, and especially the way he plays his flute and his many pranks and all those things. It's very sweet, but also she is the one who suffers from pangs of separation, and sometimes it seems that Krishna doesn't care at all. Krishna is a Sanskrit word which literally means black or dark. In indigenous Bengali, the word is Kala, K-A-L-A. And the word for goddess is Kali, which also means dark one, but feminine. But Kala also has meaning of being when you say my bones are blackened, literally, which this song says at the beginning, that means that actually I am so affected by separation, from your love, that even my bones and my marrows are affected. This is very body-centric thing, and you'll find that in every folk tradition, things are actually very body-centric, and intellectuals get farther and farther away from all these things by trying to make a distinction between what they think is gross stuff like body, and bodily functions, and the higher stuff, which I think is complete self-deception. And I think in the first place, they are separated from their own bodies, and that's really the problem. That's where it all begins. But the common folks, they really are not. So I'll just sing this for you. And there are some scenery of Bengal that you can see that might make it more real for you. I'll just sing part of it. Amar hare kala korelam re আমার দেহ কালারে লাইগারে অন্তরে কালা করলাম রে দুরান্ত পরবাসী মনরে হাইলা লোকের লাঙ্গল বাঁকা জনম বাঁকা চাঁদ রে জনম বাঁকা চাঁদ তাহার চাইতেও অধিক বাঁকা হায় হায় তাহার চাইতেও অধিক বাঁকা যারে দিছি মন রে দুরান্ত পর বাসে মনরে আমার হাড় হইল যারো যারো অন্তর হইল গুড়ারে আমার অন্তর হইল গুড়া পিরিতি ভাঙ্গিয়া গেলে হায় হায় পিরিতি ভাঙ্গিয়া গেলে নাহি লাগে জোড়ারে দুরান্ত পর বাসে Okay, please feel free also to ask any questions and also express your emotions freely, you know. Otherwise things become separated. So another thing to mention about this song is that the person singing, as I explained, is a woman, and in every mystical tradition you'll find that no matter what your sex or gender may be in human form, you have to worship God or the divine in feminine form. So there is a great deal of value put on the feminine form, but genuinely feminine form, tenderness and love and affection, and in Indian language, some of the rasas, you know, that you probably have heard of. Before we go from this to the classical, let me just mention a few things about the traditions. In Islamic worship, we have something called sama. In Turkish, it's called sema. And later on, you'll see a few examples of that. But right now, let me just mention, in the simplest form, you can just say the abstract name of God, which is Allah. Allah actually has 99 other names which express Allah's attributes. Allah has no gender. Allah is completely abstract. But you can simply say Allahu, Allahu, Allahu as many times as you want, and you'll hear that in one of the songs later. Or you can say what I wrote down there, Tawheed, which is oneness, La ilaha illallah, which means there is no God but Allah. Actually, one of the famous Sufis, he used to say just La ilaha, and for that he was killed by the Puritans. He said, well, I'm focusing still on that part. I still don't know who Allah is, you know. So how do you explain to say, you know, there is no God but Allah? You know, I don't know Allah. I'm still, you know, learning what having no God really means. But he didn't live to tell the rest of his progress. Another person whose famous saying is in this other song, which is a revolutionary song. He said, Anal Haq, which means I am the truth. And for that he was killed also. Because I think the powers, earthly powers, couldn't really tolerate, you know, that kind of insight. So there's a danger in telling the truth, and that probably made Sufis retreat, which may have saved them and the tradition, but I think it's foolish to do so today. And in Buddhism, there is something called Trisharan, which is taking 3 refuges. It goes in Sanskrit. There is also a less difficult kind of language used by Buddhist texts, which is called Pali. But this is in Sanskrit. So it says, Buddhang Sharanam Gacchami Sangham Sharanam Gacchami, Dharmam Sharanam Gacchami. So it says, I take refuge in Buddha, I take refuge in Sangha, which is organization. They started monasteries, I think, with the first tradition to have done so. And monasteries were also universities, by the way. And today in India, they have a university, new one called Nalanda. That was a very famous university, Buddhist university, many centuries ago. And then the third one says Dharma. Dharma is a very difficult concept. Every one of us has to work out our Dharma, actually, I think. And today they would be having this, there is another Sanskrit word for it, kind of difficult word, sarvanubhuti, which means to have this feeling of oneness and awareness of oneness with everything. Not just human beings, not just animals, not just stones, but everything. And that's very easy for some people, especially children, but hard for adults, it seems. So Jesus was quite right when he said that in order to enter the kingdom of heaven, you must become like a child. So, how about Hinduism? Hinduism is vast, of course. And there is a wonderful part in Mahabharata, the great epic with 48,000 shlokas, maybe the longest known epic in human history. And Krishna again has now come in another form. He's a friend of Arjuna, one of the leaders of Pandavas, who are fighting their brothers, Kauravas. There are 5 of them, the Pandavas, and 100 of Kauravas, and of course they have hundreds of thousands of troops. But Arjuna sees all these relatives lined up during the battle, and then he says, what am I doing, fighting and killing? So Krishna then reveals himself to Arjuna and shows that everything is both real and unreal at the same time. And he says this very interesting thing, and what he says actually is called Bhagavad Gita, the song of the Lord, song of God. And in these 2 shlokas, he says that whenever there is adharma, that is lack of dharma, and there is injustice, and there is a need for resurrection of the human spirit, then I create myself in human form again. So Krishna comes again and again and again, because human beings keep doing these foolish things again and again and again. And I come here to rescue those who are good, and to finish up who are not good. I come to re-establish dharma in every age. So, and in Sanskrit it goes like this. Yada yada hi dharmasya la nirbhavati bharata avyutthanam adharmasya tadatmanam srijami aham paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha dushkritam dharma samsthapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. So that's Krishna. You have the lover boy, but you also have this real savor of the universe, you might even say. Okay, so now we can see where the classical tradition really comes from in Hindustani music. So there's a short excerpt that I did once. I forget exactly when, and again, you just focus on the music and not on the images. It's Vrindavani Sarang. Vrindavani Sarang is it's in Khyal form, which is that Khyal has basically 2 sung parts. One is called Sthai, the other is Antara. Sthai is usually in the middle octave to lower octave, and Antara is higher, from the middle octave to the higher octave. So to be a good Hindustani or Carnatiki classical singer, you actually have to have a range as close to 3 octaves as possible. So that's one thing that you have to learn since you were a child. My training started when I was 4 years old, and I still quite haven't mastered everything, although, it's fun. Trying to do so. And you stretch your voice as far as you can on both sides, on the higher side and on the lower side. Some rags require singing on the lower side more. We will see one of them, Malcolm's, towards the end, and some on the higher side. And there is a word for these things, purbang, which is you focus on the lower side, both the middle octave and the lower octave, and uttarang, which is you focus on the rest of it. And Vrindavani Sarang is something that has the one prominent note which is right in the middle, the 5th note. And since you are all musicians, you'll be able to hear this. Then it's hard to decide whether it is, that way or that way. But actually, Vrindavani Sarang is this way. It's a purbang rag. So you have to be careful, and you better know your lower notes well. And in classical music, you may know, we have something called alap, which literally means conversation. So you explore each and every note and relationship between notes in that particular raga. And if you're good at it, you actually see visions, you see forms in front of your eyes as you are creating. You are creating these forms, and the form is creating your music. Then we have something called bandish, which is set form, and this is where you have the sthai and antara. And again, it's about, this one is about Krishna too. And Radha is now upset. She's saying, no, I'm not coming to you. I know how tricky you are. and you send this old woman, who's so sweet talking and persuasive. Krishna is very clever. He doesn't always go himself. He sends some go-between. But actually she does love him very much. So she's saying no, but her heart is saying yes. So I think women can understand this very well. Then we have something called tan. Tan is, you do the same thing, exploration of notes, but you have to do them very quickly. And it's also a risky business because you may distort notes. Indian music is not just singing distinct notes, but also doing things like mir, which is going from one note to another by touching things in between. It has something called gamak, which is something that you create with your voice. And South Indian music has actually many more different kinds of gamaks, which they call gamakam, using the Sanskrit word, than North Indian music. But North Indian music also has many different kinds of tans and gamaks, and that's what differentiates, in part, the different gharanas, different households of music, different schools of music, to use the Western term. My gharana is Kirana gharana. Although I started in Maihar Gharana, my first teachers, I should say, my mother, my aunt, and Ustad Ayatullah Khan, all of whom I'm very grateful to. They all belong to Maihar Gharana, the Gharana of Ustad Alauddin Khan, Ali Akbar Khan, Ravi Shankar. They all come from this Gharana. But then I drifted. And actually, I have two friends. One of them is the most famous ghazal singer in Bangladesh now, and one of the best singers in South Asia. He stayed with Maihar Gharana, then he went to Patiala Gharana, which is Ustad Mehdi Hassan, for example, famous Pakistani ghazal singer. He's from Patiala Gharana. Patiala Gharana has many quick tans. Kirana Gharana has very beautiful alap. Tans are good too, but we don't try to mess things up, or impress people with quickness. So it's more devotional, I would say. Many famous singers, Ustad Amir Khan, and women singers like this Rubai, and also Pandit Bhimsen Joshi, they are all in Kirana Gharana. And there is a famous Ustad here, Vriddhiji, he also is from Kirana Without saying more words, let's just listen to this. I have skipped the alap part because that takes a long time. So you have bandish and you have some alap which is set in tal. Tal is a beat rhythmic cycle. It's tin tal, which is 16 beats. Not all 16 beats are tin tal, by the way. Technically there are many things here to distinguish, but I think you should just listen with open ears and heart and see what you feel.
Yeah.
Okay, that was Vrindavani Sarang. And I think we have some mantras after this, right? One is actually about Shiva, and these are accompanied by dances. The singer is a very famous, in fact, I don't know how she does all this. Her name is Shagota Lokhi Das Gupta, which may be hard for you to pronounce or remember, but she is just wonderful. My friend Tomoko Kambe, we did some concert actually right here some time ago. You'll see something by her. Tomoko Kambe and Shagota Lokhi are very good friends, and they are both very good cooks. I'm also not a bad cook, so we have plans to get together and cook some good food and share some good music sometime in the future, maybe when we are all in Japan or in India. But she is wonderful as a singer, and the dance parts are also. So first is about Shiva, Lord Shiva, and the second one is about the goddesses. First one is called Shiva Stuti. Stuti means praise, so in praise of Lord Shiva. And the second one is called Adya Stotra, which actually, Adya means original, right? At the very origin. But of course there are many universes created and destroyed, so we don't have any fixed origin. And Stotra again is in praise. So first is in praise of Lord Shiva, and the second is in praise of all the goddesses, but especially Goddess Durga and Goddess Kali, who are really the same goddess in different forms. Okay, so let's hear it.
Namastukyam Virupaksha Namaste Divyachakshushe Namaha Pinagahastaya Vajrahastaya Vai Namaha Namaste Shulahastaya
Next one, please. The first one, actually, she is praising his eyes, starting with his eyes, and then the various things that he's holding in his hands, especially Trishul, the trident. So it's a beautiful imagery, and then his cosmic role, and this is about the goddesses. Okay, it's time for a folk song now, I think, by that great Dalit singer, Prahlad Tipania and his team. They are from Madhya Pradesh, so this is from Kabir, famous Kabir, the spiritual person who used to be actually a weaver. By the way, these spiritual people, and later you'll see Bauls, the genuine spiritual people also work for a living. You know, they are not people who just live on other people's labor. Being gurus and you know, people bringing things to them. In fact, if you are a genuine guru, I learned this in my own journey, you should not ask for any money or anything from anyone. You should give freely and live with your own labor, your own works. Okay, so this is called Kahan se aaya, kahan jaoge, which is in the dialect of Madhya Pradesh, one of the dialects. It means where have you come from and where will you go? And it also is very body-centric. It says, perfect your body and purify your mind. You cannot do, one without the other. You could see the subtitles, so I don't need to explain anything. In the next song, actually she was one of my teachers, Nilufar Yasmin. There are 4 or 5 sisters, and the youngest one has recorded probably the most songs in history of music in Bangladesh, which is nowhere near what the 2 other sisters, Lata Mangeshkar and Asha Bhosle, did in India. I think Asha Bhosle now holds the world record. Lata used to hold it. But Nilufar Yasmin was also a very spiritual person. Unfortunately, she passed away very young from cancer. Her husband was a very good musician and film director as well, and their son, I think, is in music as well. And this one is from a song by great poet Nazrul Islam, on whom I have written a little bit. And he also wrote Shama Shungit, songs about goddess Kali. I've translated some of them and sent them to Saraji, so maybe she will share them with you. But this one is, he is the person, and in this case it's a woman, she. So she is singing to God, Ilahi. Ilahi comes from Allah. Ilahi is my Lord, my God. So please listen to me and just understand that I'm only a weak human being, who is coming to you. So this is a confession of one's own weakness, but at the same time the eagerness of one's heart to reach the divine in whatever way it's possible, and asking for help, from the divine itself.
Shri
also actually talking about Sama or Sima, that I hope that you'll help me recite your name or names night and day in my heart. Actually, the road to God is very simple. The God is everywhere, and it's most importantly in our heart. Okay, and next one is Tagore. I have included a lot of songs by Tagore because he is one of the most important mystic poets, musicians, in fact, and a painter too. He was multi-talented, amazing. I just don't know how someone like him could have been in human form. But I also learned and trained to be a Tagore song singer. It is a special genre. From very famous people, especially Shantidev Ghosh, who was taught by Tagore himself, and one of the two greatest early teachers. I got him when he was already very old. And he was also the teacher of Tumukko Kamme, and Tumukko and I sang together, so you'll see some of that. But this one actually, he has many songs like this. Say, I'm singing, but I don't know for whom I sing my songs. But of course, through singing itself, he discovers for whom he is singing. It's not for himself, definitely. Okay, so and it's in Rag Bhairavi, which is a beautiful rag. If you think in terms of octave, it has first, of course, and fifth. They are Shuddh. They are, and then the others are flattened, all flattened. So when you sing it, it's very, very beautiful, and you will see. Actually, I don't know if I did justice to this song, but I tried my best. I hope the music itself spoke to you. The next song is, we talked about Kali. Another name of Kali is Shakti, the feminine form of power. She is the goddess of power. So whenever I feel that I lack power, I pray to her. It's also a song about the origin of music and all art in the cosmic music. Also by Tagore, and it's in a rag called Deepak Rag, which is a very beautiful rag, and a tal, which is a tal of 10 beats, called Shurfat tal, which is a difficult tal to play also, and it's a difficult rag to sing. Anyway, I tried, my best. You can judge.
Oh
Okay, so that's about creation of cosmic music and art. And the next one is also devotional. It's not in any particular rag. Tagore got away from this strict following of classical restrictions as he got older and more confident of his own powers and wanted to do new things. But the tal, the rhythmic cycle, is one of 7 beats. It's called Teura, which is similar in terms of number of beats to something called Rupak tal, which is played in North Indian classical music. But there are many subtle technical differences. If anybody is interested, we can discuss later. But this one is also about cosmic music. He is talking to, Shiva or the divine itself. He's saying, how can you really play this veena, which is this string instrument? How can you play this cosmic veena of fire, and perhaps you play it because it plays itself. But I am full of reverence and humility, when I hear this cosmic music. So that is the idea, and this deep joy and deep pain which come from the same source in our hearts. People who are afraid of pain should never become artists, and in all senses of the word. But if you do become artist and go through the pain, you will find deeper joy than anywhere else you can find in life. That I can guarantee you. Okay, let's hear the music. I want to sing just part of one song by Tagore, which has to do with a very important theme of meeting your lover or meeting the divine. And the more challenges there are, I suppose the deeper the love for the divine or love for your human lover also is. Yes, please. So this is about the poet, the musician, the singer, waiting for the lover to come at night, and you are not sure whether the lover will come or whether wanting to come, he or she will be able to come because of this storm and the bad weather, which is coming our way, I suppose. So you can remember this song next Monday. Okay, so. Also, it's in a difficult tal when you sing slowly. It's called Champak tal, which is a tal of 5 beats, but all the odd tals are difficult to sing, and especially singing what we call legato singing in Western terminology. Aji chhare rake tumar bhishar oran shakha bundhu রাতে তোমার অভিসার পরাণ সখা বন্ধু হে আমার আকাশ কাঁদে হতাশ সম নাই যে ঘুম নয়নে মম আকাশ কাঁদে হতাশ সম নাই যে ঘুম নয়নে মম দুয়ার খুলি হে প্রিয়তম চাই যে বারে বার পরাণ সখা বন্ধু হে আমার। Okay, I think we'll skip over the next one. You have heard enough Tagore songs for the time being. Let's go to the Bauls, who are a wonderful mystical community in Bengal, who are greatly influenced by all the traditions, Islam, Hinduism, Buddhism, Tantric Buddhism. I have two short clips from two films, one made in Bangladesh, one made in West Bengal. Both are very good. And Bauls talk about Moner Manush, which is the person who is within your heart, within your soul, and how to find that person. And they are wonderful dancers. Let's go to first the one that was made in Bangladesh, and then we'll go to the one that was made in India. So this is, it talks about these three mad seekers, who have all gotten together in this place, which is the center of Vaishnava movement in modern Bengal, meaning in the 17th century, called Nadia. But again, the words are very colloquial. Village they come from that part of Bengal, in the south western part of Bengal. And the next one is about this Moner Manush, the divine within our heart, and it is within us, but we are so far away, from that divine part of ourselves. So that's the answer. When will I be able to unite? When will that time come when I will be united with that deeper part of myself? Okay, so I think now we know the secrets of what to do, but how to do it is very difficult, of course. We will skip some of these things. Mirza Ghalib, was perhaps the greatest Urdu poet of the 19th century and maybe of all time. He was a peculiar man. He drank, and once he was asked, are you a Muslim? He says, well, maybe half Muslim. And then he was asked why. He said, well, I pray sometimes, but sometimes I also drink. So I can only be half Muslim, half Muslim. But in stories, from Turkey all the way to India, there are many pairs of lovers, kind of star-crossed lovers. One of them is Laili and Majnu. Laili is a woman, and Majnu is the man. Majnu also means mad, And this song, there are several songs here by Ghalib that I sang, but maybe the last one, Shauk is desire or love or yearning or passion, and it has many colors according to Ghalib. And Qais, that's the real name of Majnu. Majnu is just mad because he was so madly in love, he became known as Majnu. So he says that Qais just sees the picture of Laili and he thinks that is reality. And he talks about how love, well, you can just go back, remember what I read from Khalil Gibran about love. Ghalib says the same thing except with fewer words and much more poetically, and the music is great there. I think we are listening to all of it or part of it from the middle to the end, but that will give you the idea. No, that's not. We have to skip to just before Mira, the one just before Mira. That's you have one, two, third one, I think. Yeah, third one. You can listen to the other ones too. They are great, but we don't have that much time, so I'm looking at my watch here. That's actually that's the first one. So you can skip this one and next one, and then go to the third one. That is a beautiful rag too. It's called Haider, which is one way it is Bhairab, the other way it is actually Kafi. That's the one that says Shauk Har Rang.
Oh, Shauk Har Rang.
Yeah, that's the one. Okay, that gives you some flavor of this. Actually, the second part of the song is what is most moving, to me. And now I found I took some looking. We'll skip over a lot of things. That all these are on YouTube. The concert that Tomoko Kambe and I did that I mentioned earlier. You can find it. But I'm so glad that I found this Qawwali music done by women in Bangladesh. Actually, historically, Sufism has had women Sufis, but generally it has been male-centered. Even sexually, it has been male-centered, which I think was a mistake. Again, and we don't need to do those things now. And this is staged, but this singer who calls herself Moon, really the English word Moon, she's very beautiful, and so are her fellow musicians. Qawwali is something that was invented by Hazrat Amir Khusru, who was a great spiritual master and also a great musician. His grave, Mazar, is in New Delhi, in a place called Nizamuddin. So this one is about both the Sufi teacher that she apparently has, and also the prophet. So she's talking about there being the flowers of kindness, and they are images of light. Light is very important, by the way, when you think about Muhammad or even Allah or God in Hinduism too. Tagore has a lot of songs about light, the divine light. So anyway, I would let the music speak for itself. The next one is not staged. There is this famous, there are actually basically two very famous Sufi orders in Bangladesh today. One is in the north. My mother and grandfather and many generations before my grandfather, they were from this order called Chishtiya order. I mentioned North India and Amir Khusru. There is a place called Ajmer. Khaja Moinuddin Chishti is buried there, and his order is called Chishtiya order, and spread all over India. And then, by the way, there is a famous Bollywood film called Jodha Bai, and there is a Qawwali there called Khaja Mere Khaja, which is about Khaja Moinuddin. It's about another Khaja, but similar. Anyway, composed by the famous music director A.R. Rahman, who became a Muslim actually. I don't know if it was because of this song or the process must have been ongoing for a long time. Anyway, so in the south there is the order of Qadiriya. Abdul Qadir Jilani came from Baghdad. So it's that order. And there is a place called Maij Bhandar. And that mosque actually that you saw there actually is from that area. But this one is the real one, and these people sing in front of that. You will also hear Allahu, maybe in parts, which is called zikr or dhikr in Arabic. and it is also part of Sama or Sama. Okay, so let's listen to that one. Here the word that sounds like school, it is actually the Bengali way of pronouncing school, school. So it says actually that, Gausal Azam Mais Bhandari, who is the teacher, he has opened this school. Here you don't have any age discrimination, old and young, they are learning together, and you don't need paper, you don't need books, you don't need ink or pens. You have to learn actually from your heart, and you have to melt your heart in others' heart, and there is no tuition to pay either. And teachers teach without taking money. We all wish that we could be in a school like that. Okay, the next one is really interesting. These women, they have taken an old Bollywood song, and they have put spiritual words about their teacher, who is Mohsen. Mohsen, another very famous spiritual person from the same region, the southeastern part of Bangladesh. You saw in the first picture, you actually saw some scenes. It's a very beautiful area, actually. If you are going to visit that part of the world, you should go there. It's wonderful. Okay, so let's listen to these women. That was about Mohsin Baba, which means Father Mohsin, but really Baba is another word for spiritual teacher. And Ma, which is mother, is for a woman who is a spiritual teacher. Japan is very interesting to me. I have learned a lot from Japan, and Buddhism traveled through Tibet and India to Japan. So we'll finish actually with very few short Japanese songs, which are actually very modern, but they have nature in them and they have love in them. And you can see that spirituality is something that is not abstract, that is not just in the temples. You don't have to go and sit painfully for hours, do zazen in Japanese temples, which if you can do it is quite beautiful. And temples are beautiful places to visit anyway. But these are modern songs which express the deep spirituality that exists in Japan in everyday life. So I will not give any explanations, we'll just listen to them through. And then that will be the end. this was about reaching God through a flower. And the next one is Sunayama. Sunayama literally means the mountain of sand. But it talks about the little birds that are in the mountain, Suzume, which means actually sparrows. Would be one way for you to imagine that. So how can you find God in little vulnerable bird, like sparrow? Place to end, I think. Sayonara. Ashita. Ashita means tomorrow. So we still have tomorrow. She's saying, or he's saying, I'm singing, so I'm saying sayonara, to the little sparrow, to the mountain, to the highland, to the sea. But there is always tomorrow. So there are many tomorrows for all of us together. And I hope you will pursue your search for truth in music and truth in life. You don't have to go very far. You just have to look within yourselves to find what you really need to find. Thank you.
Are there any questions? We have just a couple of minutes if Haider is willing.
Sure.
Otherwise, we can one by one come up and convey our gratitude or say whatever you'd like to say. I think this is in some ways, such an intimate topic that maybe private conversations would be more.
I'm here. I live practically next door.
Thank you very, very much for all that you've shared with us.
Wonderful for me.
Just a couple class announcements. So actually, this was a wonderful transition because next class period we are going to be talking about music in Japan and the shakuhachi in particular as a spiritual tool. I want you all to know that I'm working on connecting with some friends at the Gurudwara locally for potentially a visit for those of you who are interested in going to that Sikh temple that I mentioned. So I will continue to let you know as I learn. And I think that's it. I'll see you on Tuesday. And Thursday is when your ethnographic assignments are due, I believe. It's the date that's on the syllabus is the correct date. I've been kind of loose and letting it go later and later, but I think it's Thursday that's due. So email me if you have any questions over the weekend. or any issues with that work. And thank you all for being an attentive audience. Thank you once again.
Thank you.